So in today's video, we're going to talk about a question that comes a lot to Ryan and the team at Black Oak Asset Management. Roth conversion or not? Do I need to be doing one? What I need to know about it? So we're going to break that down today, help you kind of better understand the strategy, maybe if it applies to you or not, and then kind of how to make that decision. So Ryan, this is something, again, that is part of like the tax planning process. People are thinking about quite a bit, right? And you're getting asked about a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of gained a lot of steam the last several years, especially when the tax code kind of opened up the ability to do Roth conversions. There used to be limitations. If you made too much money, you could only do a certain amount. And you know, in recent history, they've kind of opened the floodgates on it. In the new tax code that is implemented or was voted into law last year, and some of it went into law last year, but most of it in 2026. Continues to open up the quote unquote floodgates of Roth conversion. So there's really no limitations. Your income doesn't matter, and how much you do doesn't matter. So there's a lot of opportunity there, but now because there's more opportunity and because you see a lot of it in the headlines, if you will, it gets more and more criticism, pros or cons. So that's kind of what we'll kind of go through today, what you should think about. But, you know, for a while there, it was like, oh, do Roth conversions. And then people started like, okay, let me poke some holes in this and have more people clickbait and you know, hear what I have to say. So there's viewpoints on both sides of it. And we'll go through and talk about kind of the pros and cons of this approach.
Yeah, Roth conversion is just another tool that's available to you, right? I mean, it's like everything else. There's nothing that's inherently good or bad. It's just, does it work for you? And so we're going to talk about that in just a second, Ryan. But let's just start explaining what a Roth conversion is for those that maybe have heard about it, but not completely familiar with it.
Yeah, So great question to start out with, because we can't assume it just, we can Google search something, but sometimes just the lost in translation, or, you know, you just may not speak the language of finance. Like I don't speak the language of medicine. My wife comes home and talks about, she's a veterinarian. She talks about different medical terms. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. So dumb it down to someone at my level that I can understand what you were talking about. So a Roth conversion is simply taking money from a pre-tax account that you've never paid tax on before, putting your hand in the cookie jar, so to speak, taking it out, and then putting the cookies in another cookie jar, into a cookie jar that you're never going to pay tax on again. So when you do that, you have to pay tax on that money. There's no penalty to do it. Like if you put your hand in the cookie jar and ate it, that would be a penalty. Okay, you would gain weight. In this case, it would be you pay a 10% penalty and your federal tax rate and state if that applies, depending on what state you are in. Once it goes into the other cookie jar, into the after-tax cookie jar, then it just multiplies. Okay, you'll have more down the road that you can have. Depending on how the market does, but you'll never owe taxes again on that money. Again, there's a 5-year rule that applies, and you need to leave it in there until 59 and a half. So if you're thinking about doing Roth conversions, I mean, it may be a good idea to do some sooner rather than later. That way, that 5-year clock starts on that money. So again, it's taking money out of a pre-tax account, putting it into a Roth account, and paying the tax on it. So it's as simple as that. There's many things to consider, but that's the mechanics of it, going from one account to the next and paying tax on it.
Okay, so let's then get into some of the good and bad of this, or things you just need to be aware of. So on the pro side, Ryan, what's the biggest benefit for deciding to do the Roth conversion?
Yeah, the biggest benefit is obviously once that money's in there, and again, you meet the 5-year rule, 59 and a half, like that, you just never pay tax on that money again. So you may think, okay, well, maybe for young people, this is a really good idea. Could be. It could still be a good idea for older people. So it just depends on a lot of different factors as far as, do you have the money to pay the tax instead of paying the tax on the money that is moved over? Because if you take $100,000 and pay the tax out of it, and then you only put $80,000, I'm just making numbers up, put $80,000 in the Roth because you paid the tax out of the movement of that money, then you only have $80,000 that's growing tax free. So it kind of defeats the purpose of it. I always tell people it usually is more beneficial if you pay the tax out of your own checking account or your back pocket, is what I like to say. Hey, just be able to pay the tax and then have the whole 100,000 move over to the Roth. So again, the biggest benefit is never paying tax again. The wild card that we don't know are what are future tax rates going to be. If you're a young person in your 30s, or maybe even 40s. You still have a long runway before retirement. Who knows what it's going to be? I don't have a crystal ball for that. But in my mind, I like to think of it as, even if they stay the same, I still have a bucket of money that I can pull from that Uncle Sam can't take anymore. So whether you dissect what tax rate you're in now versus later, you don't know. You don't know what that's going to be. If you think you're going to be in a different tax bracket, then that's where you can dissect. Is it going to be lower or higher? Again, we don't know. The peace of mind, if you do a Roth conversion, is knowing I'm never going to pay tax on that amount again. So whatever it grows to is yours.
Yeah. So if you thought, okay, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, maybe you would wait in that instance for these Roth conversions. That would be kind of the thing to pay attention to. But again, it's impossible to predict that.
That's right. And I've had recent conversations with clients who are in a higher tax bracket. Now, I don't like to call it a high tax bracket, because if you look at history, we're not in a high income tax environment, even though it feels like we are. If you just Google search the history of the federal income tax and what the highest rates are, and you'll see how high they have been. And it's not that far back in history that they've been much, much higher than they are now, which means it could go to that again. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, because the tax code now is quote unquote permanent until, and again, another politician changes it. So that permanent label can be a little bit misleading, but it's permanent until it changes again someday. But yeah, we don't know where it's going to go. But right now, if you're in the 32 or the 35 or the 37% tax bracket, and you think you're going to be in the 10 to 12 to 22 or the 24% tax bracket, okay, you have an argument maybe not to do one now, and then take the money out, let it grow tax deferred pre-tax, and then take that money out in retirement when you're in a lower tax bracket. So that math makes perfect sense. That's where it's a no-brainer. Again, like you just said, Ben, we don't know what the future tax rates are going to be. So I'm not telling people that they need to do Roth conversions or they have to convert every dollar that they have in a pre-tax account to Roth. I'm just saying, once it's in that Roth account, and again, it's been in there for 5 years and you're 59 and a half, you don't pay tax on it again. So that's where everybody wants to talk about the investments that they have. Well, let's talk about the diversification of tax accounts and how they're taxed. Do you have pre-tax? Do you have after-tax? Do you have tax-free? So having a combination of all those makes you navigate the tax code a little easier when you get to retirement, versus having all your money in pre-tax, pension, if you have one, Social Security. You don't have much wiggle room as far as taxes go, because you know what, in retirement, Social Security income could be taxed again. Your Medicare premiums could be taxed again. And that's all based off of taxable income, not in the Roth bucket. That's income to you, but it is not taxable. So again, it's a rabbit hole. Some people like to just compare the tax rates. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to it than just what you think the tax rates are now and what they will be. It's all the other things that you could potentially pay taxes on when you have everything in a pre-tax account.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a lot to think about, and I think a lot of people just kind of assume Roth conversions should be done. Probably, like as you pointed out, there's a lot promoting them out there, right? And it can be a very good tool. But if I came into Black Oak, Ryan, and sat down with you and said, okay, I want to do a Roth conversion, Ryan, what do you think? Is it just a conversation about tax brackets, or are we going to get into a little bit different conversation or a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it does start with tax brackets, but it does go down to future considerations as well. So we have tax planning software that can give people a pretty good indication. Like we may upload their previous year's tax returns and say, hey, is it going to be about the same, this year from last year? And if they say yes, okay, well, let's throw in a number. How much do you want to see? How much do you want to potentially convert? Oh, $30,000. Okay. If you convert $30,000 based off of your income for last year, that $30,000 just stacks on top of your other income. So you're going to pay whatever tax rate you are in. And again, if those numbers work out, if you look at it and go, oh, okay, yeah, I can afford to pay that, then that's how much we can move over and pay tax on. But we always tell them, but get the final stamp of approval from your CPA. have them run it on their specific tax planning software that says, yep, this is how much it's going to cost within a few dollars. Again, they can't get exact because they don't know what your income is for the year yet, but it's got to be done during that year. One little small caveat is I always ask people, hey, did you get a big refund last year? And so people may I don't remember why you asked. I'm like, well, if you got a refund, how much can we convert from your IRA to where you just don't get a refund this year? And there's a calculation we can do on that. So if it's a $3,000 refund, and I know people love their refunds sometimes, but if I say, hey, you got a $3,000 refund, let's try to convert as much as we can out of your IRA and you just get zero back. So you're kind of paying the tax on it with money that you've already paid the IRS. So that's another way to figure out, hey, you may not have to cut a check to the IRS. It depends on what your refund was last year.
Yeah, it's a really a good conversation and one that a question that's going to come up. Probably you've been thinking about it a little bit, but look, sit down with your advisor. If you don't have one, reach out to Black Oak Asset Management. You can get in touch with Ryan. Just go to speakwithryan.com and begin to talk about this. This is important, and this could be a potential opportunity for you to save money down the road, which is obviously something anyone would want to do as they get prepared for retirement. So again, a big question, Roth conversion or not? Well, it depends, and you want to have that conversation, but a lot of things to think about. Hopefully this helped you out. If it did, please subscribe to the channel for us. We appreciate that. We'll have another question, hopefully coming soon, and we'll dive into some more financial education here with Ryan. So appreciate the time as always, Ryan.
Absolutely.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analysis of Black Oak Asset Management. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, Private Client Services, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by Black Oak Asset Management or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Guest opinions are their own and do not reflect those of Black Oak Asset Management, RFG Advisory, or Private Client Services. Guests are not affiliated with or endorsed by the firm. Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks are subject to eligibility and contribution limits. Contributions are made with after-tax dollars, and qualified withdrawals may be tax-free if requirements are met. Roth conversions are taxable in the year converted and may impact your tax situation. Investing involves risk. Consult a qualified tax and financial professional before making any decisions. Securities offered by registered representatives of Private Client Services, member of FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services, Black Oak Asset Management, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.